Okay, we are live on YouTube and Facebook at the moment. I want to welcome all of you who have joined us. I'm excited about the guest that I'm about to bring on for you. We connected a few weeks ago, and what happened was I was doing an investment meeting, and one of the people who showed up, thanks to his knowledge of my brother Wayne Chandler, was M'Bwebe Ishangi. He is an infopreneur, writer, artist, graphic and web designer, videographer, orator, and creator, and publisher of the Ghetto Times magazine and theghettotimes.com. It's a publication and website that annihilates false perceptions of the African experience, chauffeured by the Western Eurocentric mindset, and DGTV, a video-based website that is an edutainable experience like none other. Like historian J.A. Rogers, a significant portion of M'Bwebe's studies fall under autodidacticism, a self-directed or learning or teaching from channeling and subliminal inquiries from our ADB, and that is Ancestral Data Bank, a connection he feels has been with him since his youth. So there's so much more that we could say about him, but I want to just bring him into the room and welcome him to Open Door Cleveland. My brother M'Bwebe Ishangi.
Greetings, peace.
It's such a pleasure to connect with you, especially after reading your biography and seeing some of the books that you're connected with and the knowledge that you're putting out there. So just to give some context, you have an amazing story. I read about you working for the NBA, and all of a sudden, because of your mindset, because of the principles that are floating around in your head, someone taking exception to something that you said or wrote and liberating you from your employment. Talk to us about how that happened and how this journey began for you.
Yeah, March 13, 2017. First of all, give thanks for being on your platform. Hello to all of the listeners and followers. And it's just a joy to be on this platform with you, brother. And shout out to brother Wayne Chandler, a Jegna of mine. But yeah, March 13, 2017, working with the National Basketball Association for 12 years. Just like with any situation, you know, folks can feel like they have tenure and their job is there at that point to lose. And lo and behold, that date, I was let go abruptly because of what I post on my social media pages, which is basically information pertaining to African diasporic excellence and reclamation of our stories. I was forced at that point to make a decision of whether I was going to try to find another corporate plantation to affix myself to you know, take care of my means of living, or was I going to, as I learned about financial literacy, and I chose the latter. I definitely had a case to go and fight for my job again with the EEOC, but I decided, you know, my ancestors were telling me you weren't put here to do that. You were put here to do larger and greater things. So it started with me understanding what money is. And in doing that, the first thing I went and done was met with my broker at my Fidelity, basically, and was looking to pull out money out of my 401k to take care of myself for a couple months and my family. And that's when I started learning about the issues of finances. It came a point when you pull your money out of your retirement, you have to list your occupation. And my occupation was unemployed. I didn't want to put that on there. So, you know, my broker told me, yeah, let's not put that on there. Put on there that you live off your savings and investments. And when he told me that, that's what started this whole thing. There was an epiphany. I had, you know, my mind, it just, a light went on and let me realize that this is how rich folk live. They live off their savings and investments. And that began my journey into becoming financially literate, reading all the books that I could get my hands on in regards to finances from the rich and wealthy. And then taking this information and harnessing it into a way that's palatable for African diasporic people in the United States, so that we can all learn to participate from a wealth building perspective that we haven't been privy to. So that led to me writing this book that I came out, which is called Apata Pissin, Intergenerational Wealth Planning for Black People, which encompasses an array of ways that have been old traditional ways used by rich, wealthy white families to maintain financial sustainability, not only for their lives, but for the generation 70 years into the future. So it's been a wonderful ride and doing that since then.
Okay. I did get a copy of the book, and I started looking through it, and I noticed what you said about 401ks, and I have a 401k. Actually, brother, I've done some partial rollovers. So I've rolled over some of my money into a precious metal account, and I've acquired a significant amount of silver. And I'm also looking at the possibility of rolling over some of those funds into a crypto account, because I recently found out that you can actually roll over the money from the 401k into that account and not be taxed on it. So could you talk about the realities of the 401k and how it's not worth as much as you think it's worth?
Yeah. The rollover, well, the 401k system, or the idea of the 401k, was really a band-aid solution to the pensions. You know, my grandparents, you know, when they worked, they received pensions once they retired, which means they will get paid until the day they die. Corporate America realized they couldn't do that because, you know, as people die, that's, you know, or as people retire, there's those additional funds they have to keep shelling out. So in cahoots with the government and the banking system, they created the 401k system, which was supposed to be really, again, a band-aid solution. And we saw our greatest returns up and from the 1980s until about 2000. But then it's run its course. And when we look at the stock market, we look at 401ks, even I, in the last recession of 2007 to 9, I lost $250,000 in my 401k, and it wasn't replenished. And that was, at the time, I was in my later 30s, and I figured, okay, this is me being ignorant about the way money works, thinking this is just a once in a lifetime thing. It won't ever happen again. But I soon learned that recessions are common. They've happened a lot throughout the history of America, the world in actuality. And it happens anywhere between every 5 to 10 years. And in that case, it can either disrupt the economy, or you can lose all your money altogether and you have to start all over again. So in your 30s, that's fine. Maybe even your 40s, that's fine. But what if you're at a point where in your 50s or 60s and you're trying to retire, or you're already retired, and this is money that you're using to live off of, and you lose it because there's a recession or because there's a market crash and it's not replenished? How are you able to sustain yourself at that point? That's why you find a lot of folks in the last recession, $2.7 trillion was lost in the age bracket of 55 and greater. That was lost and not replenished. So that forced folks to have to, lose their homes, move in with their families. Some of them actually could not afford their doctor visits or their medicines, so there were fatalities. So these things get affixed to the old notion that we're told if you put away your money while in your working years, it'll be there when you retire. But I've soon learned that the market is just like, as they say in Vegas, the house always wins. And if you do get any kind of return, you're going to average maybe 1.8% in your return over a 40-year period of putting money into the stock market or into your 401k. So it really made me realize that I don't want to be in that situation where I still got some good working years left in me to be dependent on putting my money in someone else's vault, so to speak, and where they make their 5- and 6-figure returns. But for me, I get less than 1 or 2%. And with the cost of inflation, it won't add up 10 or 15 or 20 years from now when I do need that to rely on to sustain myself when I'm no longer employable.
Okay. So talk about some of the things that you can do as an alternative to having your money sitting in a 401k. When that happened to you, you had to find a way to take care of yourself. So what was your approach to being able to generate income in place of having a job and someone paying you on a weekly or bi-weekly basis?
Well, the first thing is really deprogramming yourself. If we think about it, we've been taught from youth to what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be this or that. And in most cases, that implies you working for someone. So we've never had someone say when you get up, oh, I didn't hear it in my life and it's not to their fault. That we don't hear enough in our communities. Well, when you get older, you should work to be an entrepreneur. You should own your business, own your own time, understand money. And this isn't just a color specific issue. The education or the lack of education of money is rampant around the world, worldwide. That's why we have the 1% of the 1%, that the elite, the very rich, and everybody else is poor. and not poor as you don't have money, it's just you don't know how to utilize it or use it as a tool. So that was the biggest thing for me, is understanding of how do you use finances to sustain yourself. And the best model is to look at folks that don't have a need for money. You know, you study the Warren Buffetts, you study the Rockefellers, you study the rich families that have inheritedly passed down money through their generation after generation. And it isn't just about being lucky putting it into a stock, you're investing in stock or whatever. So not understanding that, I had to ask myself, okay, well, I'm not a big risk taker. I'm not that guy that goes to Vegas and goes gambling. I'm trying to sustain myself. And that's where it really started, is what is your amount? Because a lot of folks don't understand what their basic amount is to sustain themselves. And I call it the FEN, or the financial endurance number. And that simply is whatever your expenses are for the month. So for instance, your mortgage, your car notes, your insurance, your cell phones, your entertainment, food, things of that nature. Every month we have a roundabout number that comes out of our pocket. And when you multiply that number by 12 for every 12 months of the year, that is the amount of money that's come out of your pocket for the year. So those are your expenses. That's what enables you to sustain yourself. So when you ask someone, well, what amount do you need to be rich? And we'll probably go start as low as $1 million, right? Not understanding $1 million really it's a nice, but what can you do with it? If you don't know what to do with it, you're going to lose it. Actually, the amount of money that we need to sustain ourselves is significantly smaller, in the less than 50,000 or less, because in most cases, depending on what city you live in, I live in Brooklyn, New York, so the cost of living is pretty high. But in other places, your expenses totally might be $25,000 a year. And if you are unable to put yourself in a position where passive income is making you at least $25,000 a year, or whatever your FEN number is, then you're sustainable. That means that all of your bills are taken care of. Now, the goal is to get that income to not come from your employer, but have it come from a form of passive income. And that's where you get into the whole plethora of where financial literacy can help you create and use tools that the same industry, like the banking industry, uses, which is arbitrage. You can use so many different tools that are available to us to create passive income without picking up another skill, without having to get another job, adding more hours to our day. There are so many ways that we can do that. It's just that we aren't privy to those discussions until now.
Okay. You used the big word on us, and I know there's some folks out there who don't know arbitrage is. Yeah. So tell us, what is arbitrage?
Arbitrage is simply a banking practice that someone uses to their advantage and won't share with you. An example is the banking system uses what's called a fractional lending system. And the average person isn't aware that when you make a deposit into the banking system, so let's say $100, that the bank is allowed to 10x that deposit. So that $100 now turns into $1,000 for the bank. The bank now only has to keep that $100 deposit that you put in on their record. So they have $900 free dollars that they can now lend out to someone else and create new lending opportunities that gets paid back to them in interest that we get 0% of. So basically you're ceding the bank the ability to create money, and yet we get no residual return from it. So that's a form of arbitrage, is that there are things that we can do the very same way, very same practices, and maybe on a smaller scale because we don't have as much money, but the same practice in extent can be done by everyday average people, and use that to create intergenerational wealth and sustainability.
Okay. So one of those examples of arbitrage is options trading. And I'm aware of the fact that bankers use options trading to increase the money that you put into the bank. Could you talk a little bit about what options trading is and how the banks benefit from it?
Well, I'll let you speak to the option trading thing, because I can't say that I'm well versed on all this. I'm still a student and learning this thing. But I do know in regards to what banks do, again, the setup is for them to benefit from your deposits. They don't use our money. I mean, they don't use their own money to make money. They have to wait for you to put money in their vaults. And if you look back, just a sidebar, if you look back before we had direct deposit and they had to wait for us to walk our checks in, the banks were sitting there, twiddling their thumbs, waiting for those deposits to come in. But once the direct deposit started in the year 2000, 1999, it guaranteed a surplus of money coming into banking institutions on a daily basis. I worked for the NBA. We got paid every 2 Wednesdays. So every 2 Wednesdays, all the banking systems knew that if this person worked for an MBA and they had an account with us, we knew this money was coming in and we were going to 10x those deposits every 2 weeks. So they were able to, again, create these seed, loan situations, be it credit card loans, home loans, car loans, whatever it is that they wanted to loan out to folks. That was money coming from our paychecks that they were able to create these monumental returns. And this is why they have the most immaculate buildings we see in the world, the banking institutions. But again, the trading thing, I won't say that I'm versed on all of that. Yeah. So I'll yield to that.
Yeah, and I wish I could say that myself, but to explain options trading, I'll have to bring in an expert because it's so complicated. It's hard to wrap my mind around it. But what I do understand about it is that they're able to make more than just simply trading on the stock market. There's something about their ability to gain a greater number of shares paying a lesser amount of money. And they're able to make money whether the price of the stock goes up or the price of the stock goes down. And for kind of a rudimentary understanding of it, you can watch the movie Trading Places that Eddie Murphy did, because that's what options trading is. It has something to do with betting, and what they do is they do quantitative analysis, just as they do with the cryptocurrencies that you're versed in. They do the same thing on the stock side. And by using the predictive technology, they can pretty much have an idea where a stock is going to go based on trends and so forth and so on. And they use that information to profit exponentially on it. But as you stated in your book, they only give you a small percentage of interest. So they might pay you 1% or even less. But then they're earning 10 times that or 100 times that. And all of that goes to them and not to you. So you end up getting pimped. Yeah. Just like you said, you put $500 in the bank and magically that $500 turns into $5,000 that they have credit for. But then there's a whole fiat aspect of it, because in reality, that money doesn't even exist. Yep. It's all smoke and mirrors. And then you have folks who are talking about, oh, cryptocurrency, I don't understand that. It's not real, blah, blah, blah. Well, Bitcoin has over $1 trillion in market capital. People are buying things with cryptocurrency. You can buy a Tesla right now with Bitcoin. Yeah. And bruh, that Tesla that you're driving around in is real. Yeah. So don't say cryptocurrency isn't real, because it's very real.
Absolutely.
I want to rewind because you made some comments about passive income. And passive income is the way rich folk get their money, because they go to sleep at night and when they wake up the next morning, they have more money than they had before they laid their head on the pillow. So talk about what some of those passive income possibilities can be.
Well, there's a plethora of it, a lot of folks talk about investments. A lot of folks, and for me, I kind of go with, and I'm an against the grain kind of guy, one being of African descent and astute, like that's what I study. And I want to do these things on my own. I don't want to be tethered to the mindset of someone else when it comes to my sustainability, meaning that I can only learn from you and my success is based upon what you share with me. No, we have the capability of figuring these things out ourselves if we want to. If you get the basis, you can then create your own platform of success. And so I haven't adopted, a lot of the other customs and then just found some simple ones, because for most folks, money is such an intimidating topic. It's taboo, number one. We're afraid to talk about it because no one wants to talk about how broke they are. And two, when you do talk about money, it ends up in a fight because you might owe somebody $20. Somebody owe you $20 from 10 years ago that you still haven't collected. So the conversations of wealth building is really a new topic for us. But when I think about passive income, most folks will look at picking up another trade. For instance, they might say, well, real estate. Let's do real estate and you can grow money from being real estate. Well, yes, that's not that you can do that, but I'm not looking for the extra headaches of trying to find tenants, of property maintenance and things of those natures. So for me, as you mentioned, another form of passive income is to just have money compounding interest and working on its own without you having to do anything. And that's, you know, it's not being lazy, it's being smart, you know. So that's one of the things that I got into. And one of the things that I've used is learning about, you know, there's cryptocurrency one, with mining, and we, you know, we can talk about that if you want to. But then there's also, in the fiat perspective, or, you know, the paper money perspective, is looking into insurance. Now, some people think about insurance as, well, how can you make money from that? Because in most cases, we know about term life, and term is when you die, that's not your, you know, only your beneficiaries get that money. But there's a whole nother plethora of services in life insurance that enables one to create intergenerational wealth that has been recession proof, that have not been affixed by or affected by any wars, and so far in the pandemic has not been affected either. So there are ways that rich, I'm talking about rich white folks, Rockefellers, you know, the Vanderbilts, before they lost all their wealth, these families invested in, I mean, if you look at the story of the Rockefellers, life insurance is what part of the way, in addition to their pillage. Let's just be clear about that. But in the monetary respect of how they compounded their money, they opened up life insurance policies on their families, members of their family. And from that, they garnished so much money from there that they were able to open up the bank. Now you have Chase Manhattan Bank. You can basically create, through infinite banking systems, create your own and be your own bank, where you won't have to go to the bank for a loan. You won't have to create a crowd fund for anything. Passive income is a simple way to create the intergenerational wealth platform so that you can fund all of your ideas or all of your aspirations or goals, even if you want to be philanthropic. But again, it starts with rewiring your mind and deprogramming yourself, because we've been told that the only way that we can make money is by working for someone. And when you look at that situation, that relationship, it's proper professional etiquette for us to give our jobs 2 weeks notice when we want to leave our jobs, right? But when they want to let us go, they can let us go at the drop of a dime, and no job is secure. So, you know, your employer is not obligated to pay you for the rest of your life. There'll become a day one day when you'll be either fired, let go, or if lucky, retire. But from that point, your 30-day income of being able to sustain yourself is going to be in jeopardy. So how do you create a situation where money is coming in, even when you reach the age of corporate ageism, where you're too old to get a job? How can you create a situation where money is still coming in? And that's where the passive income conversation is enlightening, and something that we should be looking into.
Okay. So you mentioned whole life insurance. You also alluded to cryptocurrency, and we definitely need to talk a bit more about cryptocurrency. But I just also want to mention that many people are approached about network marketing, direct sales opportunities, and we're finding that 97% of those opportunities actually dry up, wither, and go away without making any money. You know, I've been approached several times over the years. I remember, I think the first one was Amway, and then you had Shackley, and then you had ACN, and, you know, quite a few people got involved in ACN. And, you know, I remember paying for somebody's video phone that they never used. And yes. I was being billed every month for this video phone that never got used. And the reality of those things is that you sign up for an auto ship. They take your money every month, and then you wear out your warm market, all your friends and family, and they don't want to see you come and talking about the next opportunity because the last one didn't work. So somehow we have to move away from that paradigm. But I think it's really important, as you stated, for us to make a significant paradigm shift, because what we have been told over the years is go to school, get a job, get an education, and that's going to take care of everything. And what that is really is a prescription for a lifetime of enslavement to debt. Because when you get the job, of course, you got to flex. So you got to have a nice house. You got to drive around in the latest car, the 2021. And then you rack up so much debt. And in addition to everything else, you have the student loan debt because the cost of the education was prohibitive. So you end up putting yourself in a hole that you can never dig out of. And then, of course, you got to get married. And if you get married, You got to have the bomb wedding ceremony. So you're going to spend $20,000 or $30,000 to say I do and impress everybody and put yourself further in the hole. So Black folk in America are the greatest consumers this country has ever had. And we have $1.4 trillion going through our hands, but we're not passing down this wealth. So let's talk about some real solutions. I just want to pull the covers off cryptocurrency because people are afraid, they're disinterested, they think that it's, it's just hocus pocus and it's not something that they really want to involve themselves in. But at the time that we have this conversation, the United States of America is moving towards the implementation of a digital dollar that will eliminate cash money. So the $100 bills and the $20 bills that you have stacked in that shoebox that you hidden in the closet or under your mattress or whatever, at some point in time, it's gonna be worth nothing. I mean, really, the dollar is only worth 4 cents of what it used to be long time ago. So it's really not worth anything now. Mm-hmm. And that $1 million ain't really worth $1 million. So if you're sitting on $1 million, you think you're sitting on something, you really don't have much. Right. So let's talk about cryptocurrency, what it is, and how you can benefit by implementing that as a wealth building strategy.
Okay. Disclaimer. I tell folks that one, as with anything else, you don't have to do this with other folks. In fact, it behooves you to actually know how to do it yourself so that you're not tethered to the dependency of someone else in all facets. So when I was exposed to cryptocurrency in 2015, I was just told to jump in, get some Bitcoin, get some Ethereum. And, whereas most folks would just do it and then turn, look away. I was like, okay, I want to understand this thing. So let me understand what cryptocurrency is. Let me understand what blockchain technology is. Let me understand what tech period, what's coming. Because as you mentioned, we've been in the direction of the elimination of fiat currency anyway with debit cards. How many people really walk around using cash these days? Before crypto, we've been using debit cards. We've been getting more fixed with just swiping. So I decided that I wanted to learn about what cryptocurrency is. And looking at it at first, it was this, this uphill battle I saw. This is a total different field. Here I am, a visual artist, and I want to learn about technology and money. And also I was intimidated initially. But once you get the foundation of understanding what it is, you got to first understand what money is and how is that used. And as you mentioned about fiat, it's really based upon, it's a note that goes back to, it was used to be affixed to precious metals. Now it's, again, like you said, worth about 4 cents. And so the government is in the process of moving everything to digital. But in that sense, cryptocurrency is a combination of a new form of digital money, plus it has a stock component to it, where the currency it acts like stock to a degree in its value. So, based upon more so hype than anything else, not natural catastrophes like that can affect the market. In the stock market, cryptocurrency is affixed to hype, as we saw with Reddit happening about a month ago. People hype it up. If you read what's called a white paper, we can understand what the background of these coins are. And these coins are actual coins and not something you put in your hand. It's all digital. Let's get that clear too. That it has the potential to grow in value based upon over time. And unlike stocks, where you have to buy a whole share, cryptocurrency enables you to purchase as little as $1.99 worth. So yes, right now Bitcoin is at $46,000. Last week it was approaching 60. You don't have to have $60,000 to just get a little bit of Bitcoin. It would give you one entire unit or a coin. But if you got $1.99 worth, you can buy into Bitcoin. And as Bitcoin starts to increase in its value, so does the $1.99 worth. As it starts to decrease in value, so does the $1.99 worth. And so there's a plethora of coins out there. There's over 8,400 coins out there now and growing. So that means every coin isn't a good coin. There are some coins that are worth not even a penny. They're worth 0.00000 something cents. And if you would have put $100 into something and it went to, just 10 cents, you would see 5-6 figure returns on that investment. It has that potential. It gives you the ability to create a sort of wealth that is not dependent on an income, or as far as a paycheck rather is concerned, that you can invest in something. But again, all coins aren't created equally, so you just can't just throw your money out there and go blindly. So, but I also, that's why I started teaching a course. I created the Cryptowoke Financial Sustainability Movement. At its core, it was cryptocurrency in the beginning, but then I understood in 2018 when we had the bubble, and coupled with regulation, that's what really caused the bubble, because the United States wanted to get in position to control it, and they really can't. So they shut everything down and now put themselves in position. Sidebar, we talk about Jamie Dimon, and who is the CEO of Chase Manhattan Bank. In 2017, he was saying that if any of his employees bought cryptocurrency, he would fire them. And the same night, Chase Manhattan Bank bought a whole bunch of Bitcoin. So if you know anything about Steve Coakley, he would talk about the double cross. They tell you to look this way and they're going that way. They were trying to get everybody to be afraid to get involved. It's intimidating, whereas now all these corporations were putting themselves in position to now offer it to you. The one thing I do want to talk about when it comes to crypto is don't look at it as a spender. Most people think, oh, I can now buy Bitcoin and I can buy a Tesla. Well, the very first person who sold a Bitcoin, or one of the very first, a $10,000 Bitcoin, $10,000 Bitcoins was the amount for a large pizza. So imagine back then, Bitcoin was probably wasn't even $1. So $10,000 worth of Bitcoin at $1 is, roughly 10,000, but it was less than that. The person that received that $10,000, let's say it was Pizza Hut, that received the $10,000 for that pizza, or 10,000 Bitcoins rather, if they've held on it to this day, that 10,000 Bitcoins, if you look at the price of Bitcoin now, and it's 46,000, then, you're looking at a hefty return, 6-figure return. So the point I'm saying is that it isn't to get into cryptocurrency to use it to buy things. It's to use what they call HODL, or hold on for dear life. Use it as an investment. Use it as something that you can use to then tangibly, if you want to pull out returns from it or the yields from it, fine. But don't go out buying more things with the coin, because the coin's going to increase in value over time. Bitcoin is the only, of the 8,400 coins out there, the only coin that's in 5 figures. The next one is, the closest one is Ethereum, which is, not even at 1,500 right now. And it was at nearly 2,000 last week. So there's still so much room for growth. And this really is still a first quarter opportunity for people of African descent in the United States, because as you mentioned about MLMs, we get into these situations in the fourth quarter when the money's already been made. I did the same thing. I learned about buying the video phones, and we were trying to sell video phones when the cell phone was now implementing the new camera. So who's going to buy a video phone when their cell phone could do the very same thing and better? But people were still trying to sell them because it was a fourth quarter opportunity. The money was already made. So we are now in a situation with crypto. It's still a first quarter, first half situation of the game where we can get involved and create an unlimited amount of potential income that can sustain not only yourself, but your bloodline, which then can expand into our communities, and we can start doing for ourselves, funding ourselves, not having to write grants, not having to ask for permission, and being able to do the things that we felt we were really put on this earth to do and live.
Okay. Let's talk about XRP for a few moments, because I know that there are people who have become aware of the fact that cryptocurrencies is used to do things. There are some crypto coins that are just novelties, and then there are some crypto coins that have a specific purpose, and one of those purposes is moving money from here to there. Could you talk about the functionality of cryptocurrency?
Yeah. Well, I would say that even with cryptocurrency, let's talk about the blockchain, which is, cryptocurrency is the car, blockchain is the street, the road. And blockchain is really going to enable, obviously when you want to create a new platform, the first thing you want to do is create money so you can do the exchanges. But it doesn't happen without blockchain. And blockchain also involves the mining aspect of it. But blockchain is really the ability to, what better way to make something available for everyone As they say, the greatest way the best way to hide something is to put it in front of your face. This ledger that the blockchain has is accessible to everyone, which enables you to see how this thing works, and it cuts down on the criminality that happens behind closed doors to centralized situations like our monetary system. There's a certain level of anonymity that cryptocurrency offers. Now, that anonymity, in my perspective, is dwindling because we're starting to see more and more of the KYC situations, know your customer, when you want to, purchase cryptocurrency. But in essence, Satoshi, the movement that created Bitcoin, was doing it out of anonymity and to eliminating the middleman, giving you the ability to make purchases and they don't have to know who you are. Your big brother doesn't have to be all in your backyard about certain things. But crypto, I'm sorry, I got a little sidebar with your question. Can you go back again? Because I can get on so many tangents. I apologize. What was the specific?
Yeah, I was just talking about the functionality of certain cryptocurrencies, how they're being used to move money. And in addition to that, I also, since you brought it up, I want to talk about the difference between centralized and decentralized, because many people favor crypto coins because some of them are on decentralized platforms, which allow them to be anonymous.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that this thing is in real time growing and changing. So, if you're going to get into the crypto game, it does take on a certain level of attention to know what coins to invest in. Again, reading white papers to see what specific coins have certain functionalities that certain don't. Ethereum, for once, that's one I really love, is Ethereum. I have bought Ripple, which is XRP. I'm not as astute in XRP as some folks may be, so I will admit that. Then again, because there's over 8,400 different coins out there. But as far as Ethereum, you have in which a lot of coins now are based upon, is using smart contracts. Smart contracts enables, for instance, when you want to purchase a home, say for instance it's listed at $250,000, but by the end you go through all the paperwork and all the other situations you need to go through to close that $250,000, and maybe now $275,000. That $25,000 came in fees or whatever. Smart contracts enables the consumer, one, it kicks out the middleman, because in most cases those extra expenses are for the middleman, the bank or the broker. Where in smart contracts, if it's listed at $250,000, it's going to remain at $250,000. It cements these agreements, these virtual handshaking agreements, so that there's no way that someone can kind of get over on you. And that's the ability that I love about cryptocurrencies, that it also allows global access, global trade. There are more than half the population are unbanked. There's not a Chase Manhattan Bank in Ghana. So what if you want to send money over to Senegal? Well, most people have been using, Western Union to wire money over. Well, Western Union gets a cut, and it's more than any other place. If you look at the transfer of money over to around the world, Africa, sending it to Africa gets the highest form of interest or tax. It makes the most money in these transactions, and that's just another part of discrimination in the banking system in the world, where they're making Black people pay for more. They're siphoning more money from us with our transactions. But cryptocurrency disables all of that, allows you to send someone money anywhere around the world, and in that, wherever they are, they can convert that money to their region's form of money. If you want to send money to Costa Rica, you can send Bitcoin to Costa Rica and you can convert it to colones. Same situation with London, anywhere in the world. So it takes out the banking industry, and they're shaking in their boots because they realize, well, if you're not using them, then they have to find another way to get involved. So that's why you have your Fidelities and all these other companies now wanting to offer you services. Fidelity now offers they offer a service of managing your crypto portfolio when you can do this yourself. You don't need them to do it. And that's one of the things I try to tell our people, is we can literally cut off this middleman and manage these things ourselves. Takes a little bit of a diligence, takes some study, some research, but more importantly, it's available because people are doing it. And that's something that I wholeheartedly embrace, and I hope that the rest of us are open to that.
Yeah, and I think it is important to understand the volatility of crypto markets. I mean, you really have to pay attention, but, it's the same way on the stock side of things, and people who are in the know, They know that you buy stocks when the price is low and you sell them when the price is high. You know, right. It's the same thing with cryptocurrency. So, you know, you don't want to run the Bitcoin when it's being sold for $60,000 a coin. That's the wrong time, right. You know, but it does have value in terms of its functionality and acceptance. I mean, I went to a grocery store locally called Giant Eagle a couple weeks ago, and I was looking at my options to make the purchase, and I saw Bitcoin on there, and that was like, okay, now they in it, you know, they're in it. And this is another thing that I think about, you know, the bankers are not stupid people, because the bankers are the ones who control currency around the planet. They control the money systems. They're the ones who, like the Federal Reserve, they have objectives in terms for a rate of inflation. They want to control that rate, you know, so they're controlling the money. And one of the reasons that they're moving to this digital system is so that they can have even more control of the money. Yep. I really appreciate what you said about Africa and moving money to Africa and the cost that's involved in that, because Africans are now using cryptocurrency to make transactions in their own respective countries. If you look at China, they have digitized the yuan, and now you have a cryptocurrency over there called the renminbi. So they've already made that transition to digitization of their currency. That's going to happen in America sooner than later. Absolutely. I mean, this is something that you definitely want to be aware of so that you can protect your resources. Because if you've got all that money sitting in a bank and that money is not making any money, that's money that's going to waste, because it could be creating that passive income that you talk about. I want to ask you a few more questions about crypto, specifically about certain kinds of coins and certain processes. So we have these situations called staking. We have things called stable coins. And because we're not immersed in this world, we have no idea what that means. So first, let's talk about what is a stable coin.
Great, because that was where I definitely wanted to point that out, is when you mentioned about so an investing model. If you're looking at wanting to invest in coins, because again, let's talk about, as you mentioned about Bitcoin. Now, you know, when it was at 60,000, that might not have been the right time to buy, because it was on the move of inclining, right? And now it's down to 46 because we had a correction. And a correction, basically, just to, you know, for those that may not know, you have the bear in the bull market. The bull market is when the price starts to shoot up very quickly. And then you have the bear market is when it starts to fall. And then what enables me to remember the differences is that a bear can't run downhill because it'll flip over. So when the market starts to go down, the price shoots down. That's the bear market. And then usually what happens in the correction is that wherever the end of the bear market run is, it's usually a little bit higher than what it was before the correction. So maybe it was at 10,000 before you had the run of the bull, and then it went to 12,000, and it came down to 11,000, and it stopped at 11,000. So the correction is plus 1,000, because it was at 10,000 before, now it's at 11,000. So when we think about stable coins, well, let me just say this too. So with Bitcoin, for instance, even though it was at 60,000, there still is this grand prediction that it may make 100,000 by the end of the year, right? So it's not to say don't buy it, but if you're not in the game, then yes, buy it whenever you can. But once you're in the game, be more mindful about when you are investing in coins. Don't do it on the incline. Do it when it's stable or when it's going down, because that's when you get more bang for your buck. But also there's a limit. So, you know, there's less than probably now 2 million Bitcoins left to be mined, which means that each coin, that's the difference between cryptocurrency and fiat currency. They print money, you know, as often as they want. They're probably going to pass the stimulus bill that they talked about last night. That probably will get passed. So there'll be more money. What, I can't remember how many trillions going to get printed, which devalues the fiat currency, which makes it 4 cents now, and it's going to be less because they just keep printing money, right? Cryptocurrency, however, has a limit. So there's only a certain amount of Bitcoin that are going to be available. What happens then once those coins have been all bought and now they're just circulating through different transactions is I look at it as a form of Basquiat art, where Pascal, it compounds in value over time. If you have cryptocurrency, if you have a Bitcoin and it's no longer being circulated to be just purchased, now I can sell it for whatever I want to sell it for. If someone wants to pay me $250,000 for one coin, I can do so, because now I'm the the holder of that, just like art or classic car. So that's one of the benefits. Stable coins, however, there's different kinds of coins. So with stable coins, these are coins that are backed by a commodity. It may be backed by silver, maybe backed by fiat. So if you're an investor, and as we talked about countries now creating their own currencies, right now they have the USD coin and it's based on the dollar. So it fluctuates, a little bit, 99 cents, 98 cents, or $1 so this is not a lot of a gain. But as an investor, whatever official USD official cryptocurrency will be, as an investor, we should all buy in. Why? Because there's already a 338 million civilian capacity that will be using this coin. So it behooves us to invest in something like that because it's going to be accepted by a lot of people. Because most people, this is going to be the new fiat. And fiat is basically when the government says this is our currency. We don't care what it's worth. We're gonna depend on or tell you what it's worth. If we decide that this pen is going to be our currency, this is going to be our fiat. So it's the same situation when it comes to fiat. When they get rid of the paper dollar and everything is digitized, this is again coming very soon. So be abreast of what's coming on. So definitely get in the crypto game of buying something. But stable coins are backed by some sort of commodity. Now there are more coins that are not backed by anything. They're backed by hype itself. And that's where you have to run into the risk of the longevity of the coin. Again, with all those coins out there, doesn't mean that because right now, like for instance, they're talking about Cardano, they're talking about Dogecoin. These are creating wealth or they're amassing in their amount because of the hype, because people are talking about it. But there's other coins out there that I've purchased 3, 4, 5 years ago that have diminished in value. Some don't even have a value anymore. So you don't want to put your money in any coin. You definitely got to do the diligence. And if you find that it's not doing well, you want to diversify it, pull it out and put it into something else. So that's another part of trading that we need to be aware of. Don't just put it there and turn your back like they have us do with 401ks. Oh, just put your money in there. Don't worry about it. It'll be there in 20, 25, 30 years. And the 30th year, you find out it's not there or the return is not what you thought it'd be. So we definitely have to take some ownership into it. But it's not that hard to learn once you get the basics. And that's also why I offer a course in teaching through my Cryptowoke financial sustainability movement.
Okay. Let's talk about mining, because you mentioned it earlier in our conversation, and I know that it is a way to generate income on a consistent basis. And you found some ways that you can create 4-figure, 5-figure a month income based on a mining operation. What is mining and how does it work?
Okay, so mining is just as important as blockchain. They're actually synonymous. Without mining, cryptocurrency does not exist. So I'll give you a fiat example, or an example. So if you go out to dinner and you're going to pay for dinner with your credit card, so when you go to swipe your card, we don't see what happens, but we see it's a matter of seconds. The payment is accepted, and then we go on about our way. But behind closed doors, what happens is there's a transaction, there's a communication. So when you swipe your card, that computer will communicate with your credit card company. So that computer is attached to the restaurant. The restaurant is going to communicate with the bank and ask, does M'Bwebe have X amount of dollars to pay for this dinner? And the credit card is going to say yes or no. And if it says yes, then the transaction is completed. As a reward, there is a middle person or middleman, this software that does this transaction. So it gets a payout, it gets a dividend from that, right? It could be a couple of cents. Right now, they say that credit card transactions happen 2 million transactions per second, okay? So 2 million transactions per second happening where people are swiping their card, doing transactions, and these little payouts of 2 cents, 10 cents, whatever, that starts to add up. When you look at the families who own credit card companies, they are paid, intergenerationally into the future, right? They're making billions, if not trillions of dollars on transactions alone. Cryptocurrency The mining aspect is this very same thing. When you purchase Bitcoin, when you purchase Ethereum, when you purchase Ripple or any other coin out there, in order for that transaction to happen, you are fixing a source. That source is either your bank account or another wallet that you're pulling the money from to do the transfer from. Well, the mining, I use the example of, and I can't remember the game show, it's an old game show, but you get into this vacuum type tube and they turn the vacuum on and all these dollars are flying out. You're trying to grab as many dollars as possible and put it in your pocket, right? So that's the kind of analogy I use when it comes to mining, is that they're called rigs. And these rigs are basically computers that run off of software that when a transaction goes through, these computers have to solve this riddle to get the transaction, to complete the transaction rather. So once they complete the transaction, they get a payout. So just as with swiping a credit card and the bank, for instance, Amex or Discover or MasterCard gets a payout from you buying your dinner with your credit card, the rig, if you buy Bitcoin, the rig is going to get paid a small percentage of Bitcoin. So they're working now. We're in the blockchain 5.0 software system where they're trying to, I think it's about 1 million transactions a second right now, but they're trying to exponentially grow the amount of transactions that happen per second in cryptocurrency, because again, there's over 8,400 different coins and counting. So imagine once now, every transaction of people buying currencies, you can see that someone's getting paid from that. And in my class, I show like this picture of this rig facility, and it's basically a computer system that's run off of graphic cards, and they have these they have these rig farms that are just rigs of rows and rows of rigs, and they're all mining different coins, Bitcoin, etc., all the different coins out there. So they're getting transaction payouts from each transaction 24/7, 365. So when you want to talk about passive income, mining is a way that enables you to not do anything but turn on your rig and walk away and just pay your electric bill. And that's the beauty of it. It really does create a way where folks are pulling in not hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, because transactions are happening in Bitcoin around the world. So now when we look at that opportunity, that's something that we can get involved in. And yeah, it could be a small scale. That's fine. But the fact is, again, when I talk about our FEN, if you want to be sustainable, I don't have to have a big rig facility, because my FEN isn't but, $30,000 a year. So you could make $30,000 a year off of mining, of just having your payouts come in from there. And then you're taking that money and diversifying into the market to whatever else you want to do, even cashing out of it, because that's another component I try to tell folks. Don't keep it all digital. Having a digital portfolio is fine until there's a blackout. When the power goes out, what you going to do with your money? Can you transfer your money now? So you should have a goal of what a certain amount of money you want to have that you could then liquidate and turn into something tangible. For me, the best tangible asset you can buy is land. So from that point, you can live off the land, you can monetize it, you can eat off of it, so on and so forth. That's things that I talk about in the Cryptowoke financial sustainability movement. It's not just about having money, but it's having this as a tool to create the freedom that we seek, that we've been told we get if we participated in these reindeer games of getting certified, getting doctorates, and then in actuality coming out in debt that we're still paying in our 50s for college degrees that we're not even using.
Okay. Another one of those tangible assets, in addition to real estate, is gold and silver. Could you talk about converting cryptocurrency into those two precious metals?
Yeah, I think that, and I'll tell you, after I wasn't really on the bandwagon about that until I came to your meeting a few weeks ago to really start thinking about it, because I understood that, the reason why people moved away from gold and silver was because it weighed too much. Who wants to walk around with a bag full of gold, right? And you can get jacked. The reality of it is, but I started learning about, I knew about carat bars and buying small parts of it, and precious metals. Again, precious metals is fiat. Someone decided that this rock that looks this color, that has this shine, has a value. So today it's gold and silver, and it's lasted a long time. but it could be something else. You know, imagine if someone decided to monetize sand. You know, someone could convince the world that sand has value in regards to a monetization perspective. And, you know, everybody would out there be digging for sand. There'll be no more sand on the beaches. But the point I'm making is that it is good to diversify in different things. I am a little bit cautious about the possession of precious metals because, again, you know, if someone breaks in, they find, you know, not that we'll have bullion sitting in our house, but if you got a bunch of small pieces of, you know, diamonds or gold or silver, things of that nature, it can be lost. So for me, it is something good to purchase as something that, you know, could be something you can use to sell at a later time if in need. But to me personally, I'll say my gold and silver is land, because that's something you really can't pick up and walk away with. And, you know, I would purchase gold and silver to use that as a way to purchase land. Absolutely. I would use it also as a way to hold some of it as another diversification in case electricity goes down and there's a whole new monetary system and people still see value in gold. And yeah, I would use that as a way of trade. But I would not hold large portions, large rocks of gold. I'll just paint this analogy. Octavia Butler talked about this in her book. I forgot it's so many books. Earthseed. And imagine if the dollar bill. Imagine we had a situation where things shut down, but the fiat currency still worked, and you had $100 bills, and you need to go buy some bread, and they didn't have change. So they're basically going to tell you, hey, you either give me the $100 bill or you don't get the bread. And, you know, the bread only costs $2. So you don't want to have large portions that are in a clump, for instance, like a bullion of gold, because the ability to get change is pretty difficult. So if you are going to have precious metals, I would say have them compartmentalized into small parts so that you can get better usage out of it, whatever you're purchasing it for. But a lot of folks aren't even thinking on that level. They just want to have one big, you know, again, use an example of a bullion of gold, a brick of gold, and say, I'm good. Well, no, not when you need to use it and transfer it into something that is not even near the total value of that bullion. You're going to be forced to make a decision. So, you know, again, gold is a good commodity. But I think the best thing that we should really be concerned about is, you know, land. Land to me has more value than any precious metal out here. You can, you know, grow food and you can live off of that. You can live off grid. You can create, you know, and you can monetize it, you know. So that's what I'm saying as far as the different things being diversified, but just think them through about what is it you want to do with it in case you need to liquidate it. How does that process go? And will you get its value back if you need to transfer it?
Okay. Well, what we suggest in terms of having large sums of gold or silver is you have different forms of it. So you can have the bullion, you can have the bricks. Those kinds of things are typically stored in a vault somewhere, so they're not really that easy to use. So what we would suggest is that you rely on junk silver. I mean, you know, you may not want to come in there with that brick, but you could have a mercury dime that right now is worth $2.33. Or you could have a Kennedy $half that ranges in value from $9 to $13, you know, and that's something that someone will accept because if nothing else, they could take that silver and melt it down and have something that they can use to trade for goods or services. So, you know, you have to know how to navigate that precious metals world. But yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, having land. And another thing that people invest in is real estate. And the real estate market, I mean, it's not as volatile as the stock market or, you know, the options market or crypto market. But, you know, properties go up and down in value. And really, they're only worth what someone is willing to pay you for. But it is something tangible, you know. So there are different things. Yeah, go ahead.
Might I add, too, is that's the thing, too. I've had folks when they talk about buying land, the first thing they think about is real estate. Well, let's put a house on it and rent it out. Parking lots is a $10 billion industry. So you could actually take an empty lot, just buy the lot. Either you put some concrete on and put some parking lines on there, and you can make money from just using it as a, especially in urban cities. I mean, out here in Brooklyn, parking is a must. So you don't have to necessarily put a house on there. You can just turn it into a parking lot. You can make money from there. It's a $10 billion annual industry. So there's more that you can do with land than just putting a house on it and renting it out. You can turn it into a food forest. You can grow food and sell the food from there. You have models now where you have supermarkets that are now putting greenhouses on top of the roof. So now they don't have to rely on farmers from, bringing food to them. They're growing it themselves. We can do the very same thing. You can have on your home, and you can set out a certain area and grow food in your backyard or on your roof, and you cut down your food bill. So there are things that we need to start thinking about, the dependency that we have, and trying to lessen that dependency. Because in the days that we're in with pandemics and, the readdressing of global wide dependency and the rust in the armor of global wide dependency rather, is that we need to understand that we need to become more dependent on ourselves. What can we do to sustain ourselves so we're not at the mercy of waiting for someone with our hands out coming to help us? Because usually when that happens, there's something else coming with it when they come to help us. We can just look through that historically, but not to be all, militant revolutionary. But the point is that we need to be in a situation where we can take care of the simple things, the things that happened in Texas last week. A lot of folks didn't have, and Texas decided to be independent and having their own power grid. Well, people suffered because of that. So if we're not looking into how can we mitigate some of these issues, even on a minor scale, just to hold us over for the small term, then we're going to continue to be dependent. And in those cases, historically, Black people are the last to get service. And if we do, we get the poorest of it. So we need to really change that whole situation. And it's simply by self-determining. And you self-determine through getting education and implementing what you've learned.
Well, my brother, I would say let's be militant and revolutionary. Don't apologize for it, because that's exactly what we need to do.
All right.
I just wanted to alert you. I think the microphone on your headset is banging up against the
shirt. Okay.
But I wanted to go back to the mining piece, because it helps to give context to the costs that are involved. What would be the cost, the minimum cost of setting up a mining operation, and what's involved in that?
It depends, because you have some mining operations that are cloud-based, where you basically rent space. So you're basically paying a monthly service fee. And again, they have corporations, companies that are like that. Some are, and a lot of them are based in colder climates, because when you're running these mines, they generate a lot of heat. So they, if you cool it down, it allows the computer to perform, as with any device, if it gets hot, it slows down. So they want to keep it cold. So you have a lot of mining farms that are cloud mining farms that are in New Zealand and Netherlands, things of that nature. But another way to counter that too is if you run it off of, because of electrical usage, it does cause issues with fossil fuels. Right now, because of the electrical usage of it, we're finding that your electricity bill is going to be high, right? So how can you mitigate that? Well, you can look into using solar. Well, in solar, obviously it's more predominant in the equator. So if you put mining farms in the equator area, then in that region, then you have that ongoing sun that comes in. So you're getting solar to run off and power the rig, so you don't have to use fossil fuels. And then you can also use the solar to power your air conditioning. So there are different ways to get into mining, as again, the cloud mining. Then there are some, you can go on eBay. Some people are selling rigs. And these rigs, can vary in cost. Some, as little as I definitely think it's more than 4 figures. You're probably gonna pay, 1,000, 4,000, 5,000, maybe even 10. And the more you pay is based upon the hash rate or the power that the computer or the rig generates. So, for instance, we're accustomed to now kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, right? Well, it's the same scenario when it comes to power hash rates. It's gigahash. There's mega hash, there's tetra hash. The higher, the more power, and that's more expensive, but it's more powerful. So when I mentioned about the analogy of you being in that vacuum and pulling down, dollars, if you actually soup it up and make your rig a little bit more powerful, you might now have 8 hands that are able to go and grab these dollars that are out there being transacted as transactions. So there are definitely ways to get into it cloud-based. I actually my partner and I, we build rigs. We've kind of put a pause on it because of the ownership of the rig, since we couldn't put it in the person's possession, because when it comes to maintenance, we need to have it. We need to have access to it. So if I were to make a rig for you and you lived in LA, I can't get on the plane and go to LA to fix an issue, but it's in my possession. I'm able to handle it for you. So we were doing a form of cloud-based mining. But again, if someone wants to just buy a rig for themselves and work it in their homes, that's a new model that's being created in smart homes, where you have smart homes that are being developed and a rig is being implemented into the system of the home, so that now enables them to pay the home off quicker in the form of crypto. So there's so many opportunities that we're looking into through my solar and renewable energy company called Citrix. And we're in the process of creating these solutions for diasporic and domestic African people of descent, because it's time that we have our foot in this game and not be an outsider, a cheerleader looking at the situation and then getting involved in the fourth quarter. Again, this is a first quarter opportunity that we can participate. And when you own your time through financial literacy, and you own your time, then you can look at these venues and learn how to create passive income opportunities. So this is the crux of it all.
Well, my brother, we have covered quite a bit of ground in the hour that we've been together, and I know that we really just scratched the surface.
Absolutely.
I'd like to have another conversation with you in the future. Maybe we can do an update on your progress in creating the mining opportunities, and we can talk about some of the other publications that you're connected with. But my main objective today was to give you an opportunity to promote intergenerational wealth planning for Black people, because it is important for us not only to create wealth for now, but to have something to pass on to our children and our children's children, to create the resources that will enable them to have land, to have real estate, to have investments that will create wealth for them, to be aware of passive income opportunities. Because let's face it, in our education system, they're not receiving that information to an extent that's beneficial to them, because they're in that trap of go to school so that you can go to college and create debt, and that whole debt-based platform. Yes. We got to move away from that. Yes. Because, I mean, I know you into Afrocentricity. I know you have an awareness of the science of astrology and astronomy. I know you're aware of the planetary energy that we have in place right now, and the reason that we're going through all the chaos and confusion, but we can eliminate some of that chaos and confusion by being aware, by being knowledgeable, and knowing what our options are, and not putting ourselves in jeopardy or in a place where we have to depend on government handouts and food handouts to survive. It ain't about surviving. Mm-hmm. It's about thriving. You look at the past year, the top 10 people on earth, they added $1 trillion to their coffers. Yeah. While everybody else was watching their dollars disappear, their jobs disappear, their businesses closing down, they stacking.
Yeah.
They know something that we need to know. So you can be on the sidelines, watch it from a distance, or you can get in the game, you can shoot your shot, and you can score. The choice is yours.
Right.
It's that simple.
And might I add, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, bro.
Might I add, when we look at your Elon Musk's and what he's doing in regards to, wanting to merge, AI with human beings, and he wants to, he's doing what NASA can't do. One person is doing what NASA no longer does and putting things out in space. He has the ability to think grand because he owns his time. And that's where, as you mentioned, it's so important for us to stop looking at life as, a struggle, that this is an opportunity for us to create a wealth, in the least, freeing your time up. So again, it doesn't take $1 million for you to be free. It just takes whatever your FEN number is. And when you have that number, your time is freed up. Now you can get into the things that you've always wanted to get involved in. Why was I really put here on this earth? That's one of my aspirations. And I'm living that through doing these joint ventures with folks that are doing amazing things. I mean, one of my Jegnas is Anthony Browder, and we do work out in Kemet with the excavation of Kemetic tombs that are 2,700 years old. Like, where do you find the time to do that when you got to clock in at 9 to 5 every day? You have to really look at not wasting this opportunity of life that we have right now, and then transferring that same mentality of generations having to start off with zero. We started out as an adult, we had zero capital. We had to create something from zero. And in addition, counter with having to pay off debts that we amassed if you went and got a college education. We need to change that cycle. That's not to say don't go to college, but it's just to say that information doesn't always have to come at a price. It comes with time. There's a rule that white folks use, rich folks use. It's called the 5-hour rule. And they say if you're not spending 5 hours a week learning about finances, you're being irresponsible. And that's something that takes as little as 42 to 45 minutes a day of spending time about learning about money that could change your life, not just yours, but your entire bloodline. So that's the reason why I wrote this book. And this is why I did do the classes, because these are conversations that we can no longer say, well, I didn't know. We're in the information age. This information is out here available to any and everyone that wants it. And if you want to really change your life and live off your savings and investments, a good way to do it is to become financially literate at its core.
I have to endorse what you just said. I purchased the book. I'm halfway through it, and I learned a lot in the first few chapters of it. It is an easy read. It's not hard to understand. It's in plain language so that you can grasp what is being said. There's a whole lot to learn in that. So if they want to get the book, how do they get it?
You can actually purchase it by going to my website. It's cryptowokemovement.com. That's crypto, CRYPTO, movement.com, and you can purchase it there. Okay.
And you have some other books as well.
Yes, I do. I've written a book. I released this book last year in August, September. The year before, I wrote a book called Who is the Boule? Who is the Boule is a historical look at our Black organizations and really looking at why, holding them accountable for the derailment of African liberation. These organizations that we look up to these days, the NAACP, Urban League, fraternities and sororities, it's not so much to hate on them, but to look at why they were organized, who created them, even when it comes to HBCUs. Like, most folks don't know that HBCUs were founded to counterattack Tuskegee, the Tuskegee Institute, because Tuskegee was really about being independent and self-emancipating and self-declaring. They created HBCUs as a diversion. A lot of these HBCUs are actually founded by white men and not by Black people. And, we put all this stock into being pro-Black and being Black, but in all this Blackness, economically, we're still at the lower tier in all race ethnicities. And it's by design. It's not by happenstance. This is systemically by design. And if we don't look at the history of our organizations and the roles they played, how was Garvey turned into this illegitimate businessman who allegedly fondled the money of the people that were putting money into the Black Star Line? Well, there were people that infiltrated, just as we look at the Nation of Islam, organizations that have infiltrated Black organizations and turned them upside down. If we don't look at the history of these organizations, then we're going to continue the cycle of having no progress. And we're going to continue thinking that progress can only come in the vote. Progress comes in, and change comes in economics. If you put your money behind what you're talking about, people are going to take notice. And that's something that I'm really adamant about. This what led me to writing about finances, because finances it dictates the world. And if we really want to have a say in our world, we need to get our finances together, and we could just deal with it with ourselves. Historian John Henry Clark said that, we could employ African people around the world if we just created products for Black people. That's something that seems so foreign to us, but shouldn't, as an African descended person. But it's because we've come through this Western educational system.
Yes.
So that's another book I wrote.
I got this from Quad David Whitaker, and it just left quite an impression on me. He shared a video with me that depicted a European standing at a podium talking about how Africa has been kept in poverty. And basically what he said was, we need to create a paradigm where we extract the raw materials from the countries, but we don't leave the mechanisms for them to have manufacturing. So you're taking out the raw materials, but you're not giving the people any kind of infrastructure that will allow them to create things that they can live from, you know. So where we are today is we have to look at how we can create those paradigms on the continent of Africa, but here in America as well, for us to be able to produce goods and for us to be able to provide services that we can provide jobs for people, but also teach them at the same time how to do for themselves.
Yes.
You know, I went to college about 40 years ago. I'm a little long in the tooth, bro. but what I learned was that what they do is they go to school, they get the degree, they work for the company, and they learn how the company works, and then they jump out and they create their own.
Right.
They become consultants because they've taken that knowledge and they're putting it to use for them. What we do, or what we used to do, is we used to go work for General Motors and make, you know, really nice money per hour, you know, and we buy that house and everything, and then we would live off the pension, you know, and maybe pass a little something of it off. But what happened was we created all this wealth in terms of home ownership and all of that. And then mom and dad, grandma and granddad, they went by the way, they transitioned. And then we took the house, and when we sold it and we split it up amongst everybody, if it didn't go to probate, and the you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You know, we really set ourselves up to not be in a position to transform our lives by handing down intergenerational wealth.
Yes.
So now is the time to reverse that trend. Now that we have these capital markets that are increasing on the crypto side and the other vehicles, you know, you mentioned the whole life, different things that you can do to create wealth and to put that nest egg in a place where it's going to grow and not shrink, you know, so that you can take care of yourselves and you can take care of your future. Brother M'Bwebe, it has been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you. We've had some folks who have tuned in since we've been on, and I'm sure that people will be able to see this at a future point in time and glean from it what they can. You know, that 5 hours that you talked about.
Yes.
Look, y'all be watching TV 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours a day. Okay. You got 7 days in a week and 24 hours in a day. Find some time to study something like this.
Yes.
Get the book, A Pot to Piss In. I guarantee you will learn something from it that will enable you to protect your financial future. With that, I will say, my brother, Hotep, Luta Kontinua, and all the other good things that we say to each other in parting. I wish you all the success in the world. I look forward to having another conversation with you on this forum so that we can bring folks up to date with what you're doing and give them some other strategies for building their wealth. I don't expect you to give away free information. I know that's part of how you eat. So I can understand not going too in depth because you have to have value in your product, and your product is the information. But, you know, we did want to give folks some kind of understanding of this crypto world and how you can jump in and benefit from it. Because like I said, if you don't jump into the game, you can't shoot the shot, you can't score, you can't win.
Absolutely.
Now it's time to get in. Now it's time to win.
Well, if I might add, if I might add one more thing, too, is that with that said, next week, to extend Black History Month, I'm trying to change it, you know, from month to year. Is next week is Financial Literacy Week, and I'm actually teaching a course at a discount for folks that are interested in introduction to both cryptocurrency and financial literacy. So if you go to cryptowokemovement.com, or you can email me at cryptowokemovement@gmail.com, gives you information about our Financial Literacy Week that's starting next week. We're teaching cryptocurrency in addition to other money-making methodologies to create financial sustainability for you and your family. So just wanted to put that out there too.
All right. Very good. Thank you, my brother. I'm going to end the
Yes.
broadcast, but we'll talk a few moments after we conclude it. So,
Absolutely.
for those of you who have been on Facebook and YouTube viewing us, thank you for joining us. Don't forget, I got to do this like everybody else does. Like and subscribe. I'm not looking at making big money off YouTube and Facebook, but it may be of some future benefit in the future. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you on the next broadcast.
Bless.